If you want to know how you can build generational wealth for you and your family, but you're investing early before the big money has entered, OriginClear has discovered $1 trillion asset class that's literally forming right now. Forbes Council has already quoted as saying the world's first trillionaire will be created not in high tech, not in fintech, not electric cars, but in water. But does the world really benefit from a trillionaire? What if we could make this the people's asset and create millions of multimillionaires? This can create decades of income, protect you against inflation, and create an equity event that, if the experts are right, could be life-altering. Now, if that's for you, just go to oc.gold/Ken, and you'll be able to book a one-on-one strategy session with me, oc.gold/Ken.
I like that hard-hitting video that was shot in New York recently, and very nice work by Ken here. So with that, I'm going to step right into the show. Today is Thursday, June 22nd, 2023, briefing number 216, Water, the Blue Gold, and Water is the People's Choice. All right. So with that, in the news, in a publication called Grit Daily, and this is about companies becoming more water positive. It talks about a major trend that's already occurring. For example, major companies have promised to generate more water than they're using. That's what that means, right? They must put more water back in the environment than they take out. Water saving strategies, etc. Look at PepsiCo plans to treat wastewater on site. How long have we been telling that story, huh? This will allow the factory to reuse 80% of the water it draws from the tap. That's a beautiful thing. Yes, the UN predicts a 40% shortfall in freshwater resources by 2030. And this is what's very interesting. The water issues are extremely hyperlocal, right? So that's something to remember and that's another reason why one size fits all doesn't work so well, right? So it really is all about distributed water, decentralized water. Here's where I'm quoted, my famous recurring quote about, industry and agriculture hogging the water usage, 9/10 of it, and they put a great burden on the centralized systems. And so if we can get them to treat and recycle their wastewater, then, not only will we have better water for the people, but also companies benefit. And it goes on to discuss this, save on water fees, avoid fines, get more turns out of their water, et cetera. And talks about water on demand. And this is where you get the vital technology with no capital expense, just operating expenses. All right. So that was a good little article. Now, in water news, Jackson, Mississippi is back in the news. Remember a few months ago, they had tremendous water problems. Well, now apparently they've been losing 5 million gallons a day because of an abandoned golf course. And been there since 2016. Anyone want to do the math? 5 million gallons a day for 7 years. That's like 10 billion gallons or something like that. It's ridiculous. And here's the problem. The city's 2 water plants were built in 1910s and 1980s. So many of the pipes are over 100 years old. This is the problem with the infrastructure that we don't hear about, but then it happens, right? And we're so surprised. Okay, droughts, and of course, the management issues in Jackson, 100%, but it's also a funding issue. And that was helped by a recent infusion of federal funds. So the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? But that still keeps the problem in place for the central utilities. South Africa, oh my gosh, they had power shortages, now they're running out of water. There are so many people drilling their own boreholes, and so everybody's pumping their own water. That can't end well, right? Poorly maintained infrastructure, once again, right? Vast leaks as well as sewage problems, supply of water that cannot meet demand. 70 million liters of treated, clean, drinkable water are lost every single day because of these leaks. That's ridiculous. Divide that by 4 and you get the gallons. Selling bottled water, which is so lame, people are broke anyway, and now they got to buy bottled water. Here's another place where, no one's going to tell us that the infrastructure is good. $7,000 for a borehole? Well, that's South Africa because it's a lot more expensive here. But nonetheless, for the local funding, that's a lot. But the other problem is that when a bunch of people drill boreholes, you suck up the groundwater, right? And that's how it ends up being. Environmental impact of boreholes, fix the leaks, spend actual money on infrastructure maintenance, and test water regularly so you monitor what people are made to drink. Fine. National government needs to be better at keeping municipalities in line. Well, this is the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and thinking it will have a different outcome. This is going to keep on happening. We have got to empower businesses and agriculture to do their own water treatment in order to unburden the local city. Interesting case that Larry Judge brought us. Supreme Court rules against Navajo Nation in water supply case. So the Navajo Nation said, we need water. And, they have a good point because their water expense, since they were put in desert reservations, is as much as 20 times higher than what everyone else pays. But here's where it's at. The reason why this is an important article is that the Supreme Court, here it goes, the zero-sum reality of water in the West underscores that courts must stay in their proper constitutional lane and leaving to the Congress and President the responsibility to enact laws. So the judicial will not help with the tremendous inequities. It's not just the Navajos. There's all kinds of inequities in the West based on prior rights, and they can be resolved. There can be, properly enabled, compensated. We take land for various purposes and we compensate the owners. Why not water, right? But it has to be done and it's not happening. Okay. The average person on a Navajo reservation uses 7 gallons of water a day, whereas the national average is 80 to 100. Again, the problem is that they cannot get there through litigation. Okay. So that's that. It's sad, but it's true. And again, it's a problem with centralized systems. We're not going to change the Byzantine allocation of water in the West. We just have to save more water. All right. Well, we have a fantastic testimonial from engineer James Conner. Let's go ahead and listen to it. So James Conner, I'm Riggs Eckelberry, the CEO of OriginClear, which has been developing modular water systems with the brilliant Dan Early for many years now. And you're here to report on a particular project that we were not able to talk about a lot because, of course, it was in zip-it locations. So tell me what, James, tell me what you're involved with and how it related to modular water.
Well, I've got 2 projects that I've worked with Modular Water on. One is a membrane bioreactor for a mobile home park that was commissioned in January, and the other one that I think you're probably referring to is at a power plant in Peach Bottom, Pennsylvania. That is an ongoing design build endeavor between the power company Constellation and Modular Water. And in the early stages of that, I helped assemble the design build team for the project.
Well, okay, so it can be told that the power plant. All right, so yeah, we've done power plant projects before over on the progressive water treatment side, but that's all very industry standard, custom engineering. For example, we have a major power plant in the Southwest, multiple power plants with their filtration requirements. But here, I take it we took advantage of the modular drop-in-place capability of Modular Water Systems.
That's correct. Yes, and that is absolutely what helped us win the contract for this project. They knew that they were looking for a package system. Did not expect to get the level of a complete package that they are receiving through this venture with Modular Water. Especially the complete controls package being delivered in a prefabricated building with all wiring, parts, and components pretty much ready to go when it arrives on site. In addition, I don't think that they expected the level of cooperation as a team, as far as the engineering and design assistance that Modular Water and Dan Early and Rob Litos and the team brought to the table to work with the consultants that the power company already had on board, and everything worked seamlessly. We received the DEP permit, which was the responsibility of Modular Water. Received that, I believe, on our first try, which is a rare occurrence. So we were right on schedule, if not a bit ahead of schedule. And when the regulatory agencies get involved, that's often not the case.
Was the Peach Bottom project above ground or below ground?
It's half and half. So the control building obviously is above ground, and there's some tankage as part of that. And then the reactors are half in the ground and half out of the ground, probably extending about 3 feet or so above grade. I believe it's 42 inches is what they went with above grade. And it is the sandwich panel polypropylene fabricated tanks, which were very, very interesting to the entire project team. The end user was excited to use them, but had a little bit of apprehension, if you will, with getting it through the DEP permitting process, which we didn't have any issues whatsoever.
It's fascinating because the high density polyethylene is great, especially during the all the supply chain issues we had, post pandemic, because polyethylene and polypropylene are very low grade, and whereas other manufacturers are experiencing all kinds of issues, we're like, yeah, no problem, we got this. That was a lot of fun. So the reason I asked about above ground or below ground is because we have 2 product lines. One is Avera Treat, which is the underground, and one is Avera Skid, which just drops onto a pad. And it sounds like it was the former. So what was the throughput of the Peach Bottom setup?
I believe we ended up with a 20,000 gallon per day system, which there was some back and forth with the project team on that right from the beginning. The interesting part about this system is there's a period of time once per year that lasts about 3 weeks where there is a significantly higher flow because the plant shuts down for maintenance, and they bring in a large crew of maintenance workers. Their original plan was to kind of forget about that and pump and haul during that period.
Wow.
And when we kind of got an idea of what they were trying to accomplish there, we said, well, wait a minute, let's see if there's a way to get you through this period without bearing that expense of pumping and hauling for 3 weeks. So Dan Early and his team helped take a look at that, especially with the fixed film process that we were going with here. Really helped it really gave us the ability to get through that period with very minimal, if any, pumping and hauling. We do still have the provisions to do that if they feel it's necessary. But they may be able to get through that period without pumping and hauling at all.
That's good news. Well, so what I take away from this, Jim, is that customer had an experience that was above and beyond what they expected, the modularity, the completeness, and for the engineers especially, it was great to have a turnkey type setup. And I suspect that it is also going to help with maintenance, right? One of the features I've been learning from these interviews is that Dan Early and Rob and team, they design these things so that typically a regular facilities manager can take care of this without a lot of expertise. Is that what you expect for this setup?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. It's a simple system to operate. They will still need to have a licensed operator.
Sure.
Because it is a permitted discharge, but the plant maintenance staff will be able to take care of this facility for the most part.
That's really fantastic. Well, so that's the Peach Bottom installation, 20K gallons per day. And then now Modular Water Systems has been getting into the housing market. So tell me about that project.
So that was a project that, oh man, I was involved with for probably 5 years, trying to help this mobile home park owner who really got raked over the coals, if you will, years ago, and spent an awful lot of money on a stand mount system that wasn't permitted, it wasn't designed correctly, and was having issues. She was the owner was basically giving a court order to get the wastewater system fixed, or they were going to shut down the park. And she had already spent the money that was slated for this project. And mobile home park with approximately 40 connections can't come up with hundreds of thousands of dollars at the at the tip of a hat, especially if you've already spent what you had. So I was, being involved in particular in the small flows treatment systems throughout Eastern Pennsylvania. I was determined to find a way to help this owner do something not only quickly but economically. And I looked at a number of different options, from recirculating sand filters to steel package plants, and you name it, anything in between. And when I first met Dan Early, boy, this project came to mind right away. I said, boy, I think we might have something here that we can, that we can really help this woman out and get her out of trouble. The price was excellent. The assistance, she didn't have a lot of money up front to pay a consulting engineering firm, so to design something from scratch. So the fact that this was pretty much a pre-engineered solution for her was fantastic. As soon as I presented it to her, she's like, I like this. I met with the operators. They were fully on board. It's a membrane bioreactor. The effluent requirements at this particular facility were pretty stringent, which made some of the other technologies a little tricky. They would have required tertiary treatment, filtration to get down to those numbers, which drove the cost up on basically all of the other alternatives.
So the discharge to the ground?
It's a discharge to a stream, but it's a very small stream.
Interesting.
It's the Neville Mobile Home Park.
Absolutely, Neville Home Park. So that is great, because the problem with mobile home parks, as we found, is that either there's no ready connection to the city, or the city just doesn't want to connect, right? Either way. Yep. No, you got to take care of it yourself. It's too much of a burden. And you're also upgrading from some pretty archaic systems. One system in Troy, Alabama was this, passive pond, which is basically a bunch of green algae, duckweed. And that's not pretty. And so absolutely, the the departments of environmental quality, whatever they're called, depending on the state, are really getting onto this, rightly so. But it's creating this huge problem. And so I think the package was a Veriskid, in other words, on a pad, right? Yep. And then combined, there was a pump station as well, right?
There was a small pump station, yes. So what we were able to do is reutilize the existing tankage that they had in the ground for the septic system that was failing. We took the effluent from the septic tanks, which was then treated for primary. So very little solids, suspended solids coming into the membrane bioreactor. But that was all underground, so we needed a small pump station to lift up into the system, which was a perfect fit. Being that Modular Water also provides packaged pump stations, we're able to do it very economically, keep the controls in the same package as the treatment plant itself. The pump station was right next to it. The power was coming out of the same power panel. So ancillary equipment such as power and controls that sometimes add quite a bit of cost to pump stations were able to be added onto our treatment plant package for very little cost.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing, and you'd think that the industry would be thinking that way already. Self-contained and standardized packages, scalable. And yet we're still in the era of like building homes versus just having these boxable type, things. And I think that's where Dan is really, revolutionary. What do you foresee for Iron Horse's future with Modular Water? Do you see expanding into other verticals? Where do you see things going?
Yeah, I think there's opportunity in not only the mobile home parks, but Pennsylvania in particular is littered with a lot of small treatment plants, small municipalities. We do not have a lot of centralized wastewater treatment facilities once you get outside of the metro areas. So gas stations, travel plazas, campgrounds, all of those types of facilities are usually, once you get outside the metro areas, are on their own as far as their water and wastewater utilities are concerned. So I believe there's a lot of opportunity ahead for us.
Yeah, and the old line decentralized water treatment, which was septics, has all kinds of issues, as we know, with potential failure, contamination of the groundwater, viral and bacterial load, and also in many cases regulations prevent the septic tank from going in due to distance. For example, FHA requires a certain distance to finance a home with a septic. So I think it's really exciting what you're talking about, which is everywhere where there is detached installations, it makes sense for them to have built-in black water treatment and, of course, the ability to recycle. I wanted to ask you one last topic, really. You talked about how Neville Home Park, had a budget issue. One of the big initiatives that we're working on is called Water on Demand, and it's basically water as a service. So, you don't have to expend the capital, maybe spend some money on the engineering study, but after that, you sign a service contract, 10, 15 years, and you just pay as you're accustomed to on the meter, and it's paid per gallon. But will that be a major factor in helping customers move along, or how significant could that be in the end?
So I think it's going to depend a lot on who the customer is and the timing of that presentation. So that is something that we did talk to Neville Mobile Home Park about. It was a high level conversation, and I think it probably stalled out because they were under a timing issue. With DEP, and there really wasn't enough time for them to vet that thoroughly as an option. She ended up getting a partnership with another mobile home park developer, and kind of split ownership with them, and that's how she was able to kind of finance the project. But it certainly was something that was of interest. And I think going forward, the concept has some merit for sure. Many of these, the list that I just gave you, right? Mobile home parks, travel plazas, campgrounds, they don't want to be in the utility business.
Yeah.
They want to run their campground. They want to run their business. So if there's an opportunity for them to pay someone else to just take care of it, then you guys are taking it a step beyond the contract operators, right? Because that's what most of these facilities are using now is it's contract operations. Well, at the end of the day, the owner is still holding that permit. That permit's still in their name. If OriginClear or Modular Water can come in there and take that ultimate responsibility, to take ownership of that, I think that there's definitely some value.
Yeah, I think that's what we've learned is that we need to propose the water as a service, which is called Water on Demand, early in the process, so that it's not like, oh my God, whoa, because it's a major decision. They have to really inspect, on a long service contract. Well, how does this work out financially versus paying for it up front, all those things, and so. This is why we actually, OriginClear sold, it's an internal transaction, but we sold Modular Water Systems to our other subsidiary, Water on Demand, so that Dan Early and his team could propose this to the consulting engineer right at the beginning of a discussion. Say, hey, by the way, this could be done on a rent-a-center model, where you don't have to, the asset remains in the name of Water on Demand, and you pay as you would with the utility, and you don't have to worry about, maintenance or anything. We just take care of it all. That's something that is so revolutionary that it has to come up early. And then we have to also accumulate a track record, right? It's one of those, chicken and egg situations. Like, okay, where's the first pilot? Well, we need the first pilot but we
Right.
don't have a pilot, one of those things. So, we're actually making some headway in finding some willing victims. so we can work our way into it. But our expectation is that it's going to work a lot like synergistically like GM and GM Financial, where they help each other. Now, not every GM car is sold with GM Financial financing, but it's a big help to close deals. It's synergistic, right. And it's also a source of very good margins, right? So we're very excited about this. But what we realized was the existing modular water systems business, which literally tripled between 21 and 22, is already, just on the design and build basis, doing fantastically well. We're not going to break that. We're not going to say, okay, now everything's got to be service contracts. We want to continue to scale up and work with engineering firms like yours on the classic model, and then over time, merge in the other, so that it becomes part of a complete package. And I think that will make us, a good all-around player to suit all financial situations, et cetera.
Right. Agreed.
Well, Jim, it's been such a pleasure talking, some of it speculatively, but a lot of it had to do with your experience with these two sites, that it worked out well. And I looking forward to continued relationship with your organization. And here's to a great rest of the year, more projects, more wins, and, scaling up our mutual businesses.
Sounds good. Same to you, Riggs. It's been a pleasure. And you guys ever need anything from me, don't hesitate to ask.
Jim, thank you so much, and have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah, I thought that was powerful. I thought it was very powerful. We went over a lot of the business model. It validated our realization that water on demand has to be chosen early because it's such a game changer. Anything disruptive, you got to do early. Yes, Matthew, in the case of the power plant, I believe that it was disposed to the ground. That's to this small stream, as they say. Anyway, so that was a really cool piece of, it's wonderful when, they don't have to say anything like this, right? All right. So with that, I wanted to just mention that we have Who to the Street airings. The last interview that was done is in 2 days. We have Newsmax, 3:30 p.m. EST. And then we have Bloomberg at 6:30 p.m. Once a month, Bloomberg is a 6:30 p.m. slot, which is a very good one on a Monday, right? A Monday night, 6:30, primo. Then Fox at 10:30 p.m. PST. Like, okay, fine, whatever. But the Bloomberg, and again, July 13th, Bloomberg, 9:30 p.m. PST. So the good slots are Newsmax, that once a month slot with Bloomberg, 6:30 p.m. EST, which is money, repeated on July 29th, as you can see. So that gives us some good exposure. And Ken did an excellent job on it. And with that, along comes Ken.
Good evening. Yeah, so I just looked at my calendar. That's Saturday. I didn't even realize it was coming up that soon. So that's interesting. We got 2 airings on Saturday in the afternoon and the early evening. So that's cool.
Exactly. Well, we have the June 24th. They're both on Saturday. That corrects my statement that it's the Tuesday that Fox Business is in that impossible slot, 10:30 p.m.
Eastern. Yeah.
It's for people who can't get to sleep.
Maybe they're worried about money.
Maybe they were trying to figure out where to invest.
Yeah, maybe. Could be. So, look, I found that particular interview to be very enlightening. All right, so the mobile home park, the fact that they were able to significantly reduce cost to the end user because it was an all-in-one package, it wouldn't have to have that second filter. It brought it to, tertiary level in a single package rather than some sort of secondary treatment. That was huge. And the fact that, what was it, Peach Bottom, PA?
Right, this is Constellation Energy.
Yeah, Peach Bottom, PA, that they were able to discharge that to a stream.
Yep.
That's big.
No, because they didn't have to pipe it back to the city. Of course, we want them to reuse. That's the next step, right? But people have to work their way into the reusing mantra. And of course, in Pennsylvania, we don't have the water shortage. And I believe that water rates are relatively low.
Yes, it rains every 15 minutes here. So,
but what the city charges you is probably relatively low as well.
It is. It is. It's not a water shortage, but water quality is a very significant problem. Even before the Ohio train thing, which affected even the northernmost regions of where I live, up in Cranberry, Butler County, north of Pittsburgh City proper, all of that area, they had animals that were getting sick and stuff like that. But we have in, I believe it was Delmont or Penn Township, there's a lot of fracking. They had reported several children getting sick, and they believe it may have come from some contamination in groundwater. So even without that, I did that study. You sent me to that website to test my local water in Murraysville,
Mm-hmm.
and it had nine contaminants that were over the recommended safety limit. So it's just 9. It's not like, it's not like it's dirty or anything. So, I have a whole home system, and we do RO for drinking water anyway, right? But I wouldn't even shower with the water. So the water quality issue in Western Pennsylvania, where I am, is bad. It's bad.
And you'd think, I have a relative who in the 70s, he moved out. He had a career in New York City at Levi's, and he left the city and he decided to go to the Finger Lakes to get away from everything. He finds out that all the nuclear sites are out there. Forget it. Missile silos and everything. And he goes, oh my God, you can't. Rural America is only apparently safe, but it is actually where a lot of the bad stuff exists.
Yeah, right. The idea was to keep it out of the population centers in case of the unexpected, right?
Sure.
So yeah, even the low density population areas, they have a lot of problems. And look, I'm not a Debbie Downer on fracking or anything like that, but if it begins to affect the water table, that has to be addressed. And what better way of doing that than maybe treating it at the point of its contamination? What an idea.
They do it in Pennsylvania, the Marcellus Shale. They do right? They don't treat in Ohio. And so there's a lot of trucking of frack water into Ohio there kind of thing. Anyway, but what was interesting about the show that I did is it's so many canaries in a coal mine, so many problems cropping up. And it's feeding awareness of a problem. And that's where our solution is such a good highlight for, what must be done. And they're still going, oh, we got to spend money at the central location. Why? Well, politics. But if it doesn't solve it, you got to do something else, right?
The idea that if I said to you 10 years ago, hundreds of millions of dollars are being dumped into cleaning water, it would have been in a city or in a municipality. Now, hundreds of millions of dollars are actually going into solutions to deal with the private handling of wastewater at industrial sites. And of course, that moves out to, residential and commercial sites as well. That is the major change in the last, I would say maybe it happened before here, Riggs, but I don't even think 2 years ago it was being discussed. I don't think you saw major companies being, kind of grown from the ground up to satisfy, like Pepsi, right? So Pepsi is going to go, I often say, if you're Pepsi, if you're Anheuser-Busch, you buy $100 million system, you fund it yourself or whatever. And, but that problem is 10 and major polluters, major companies like that are not polluters. It's the local businesses, as we refer to them. They don't have the resources and they're stuck.
Right. So on the one hand, this whole trend like PepsiCo and so forth, it is a trend towards decentralization.
Sure.
But they don't have to use water on demand, and they shouldn't have to. That's water on demand is really appropriate. We had that wonderful discussion with that engineer where he agreed very much that, early intervention so that the client can really internalize this phenomenal new solution. Because it's like, you could have a date with a top model. Okay, what's the catch? What's the catch? What's going on here, right? And
you have to have an Amex Black card. Oh, okay.
Said it's $5,000 a year.
So the other thing is you talked about decentralization, and yes, at the major industrial location, it's truly decentralized, right? And it's like you said, it's the self-help. I don't think the big companies were ever major polluters, but being able to bring that down.
No, they are polluters, but they are handling it. Of course.
Well, okay, right. Well, I'm sorry, they're not net polluters.
Right.
They're not net polluters, right? Of course they're polluting, right? But they're not, when they're done, they're leaving it as good as they found it, which the smaller or local businesses don't really have the option to do. And like you said, what was that one woman? That woman had to sell a portion
half of her equity.
She had to sell half her park to a guy to cover the cost of the system. So, I mean, how many examples are there out there of that? Tons, right? So it's a great market, and I'm excited to dive in.
Indeed. So the big guys lead the way. That water positive thing is very interesting. In other words, provide more clean water than you use. Wow. Now that's going to be the big guys, right? That's going to be the big guys. But that's a really interesting concept. And
Paul, you called me earlier. I was on the phone. I said I would call you. I'll probably call you right after the meeting, and I'll discuss that with you. I can address it. So he's talking about, what about big money getting involved with us? Paul, we think that big money, institutional money, will have its place in this space. I think the way we want to position ourselves, Riggs, is staying with the individual accredited investor and maybe the family office to make it not kind of like, the hedge fund asset.
Well,
we fashion it as the people's asset class.
What is our unique selling proposition? Because there are the water as a service companies. There are other modular water companies, although they're not as good as us, for sure.
No question.
Unique selling proposition is we are the only way an investor can put his or her money into a basket of water equipment assets, and we want to preserve that. That's why we're now saying
produce royalties, right? Make it like an oil well.
Water is the people's choice. So that's what we're saying, and we want to keep that. Now, we can use capital for acquisitions, M&A, for example. We can use capital for all kinds of things, building infrastructure, all that good stuff. But for the actual water like an oil well, we like regular investors, and they're in the aggregate, they're actually larger than everyone else.
Oh yeah, there's $4.3 trillion right now in being managed by family offices.
And that doesn't include the accredited investors.
No, you could probably add another, $1 trillion of wealth among the world's accredited investors. The point I'm making is, if you can't solve the problem with $1 trillion, you have it. And the truth is, it can be, especially when it's decentralized in this way. Yes,
power of small numbers, things add up. And as anyone who's done a budget and has looked at their Amazon bill realizes, it's the small expenses, right? So the small investors add up if you have a good proposition for them. So like we said, and we're going to wrap this up, we don't want one water trillionaire. We want 1 million millionaires.
Sure. And providing direct access to a royalty-bearing asset class for the accredited investor really does separate us from everyone else. Because at the end of the day, we're all doing good, right? We're all doing some good with our technology. It's our approach that's able to democratize it and bring it down to, kind of, if not the ordinary person, then certainly the average investor.
The average accredited investor. And the reason we can do it is it's very early in the cycle for water, right? This is like Apple 1984. You could never do it, once iPod existed and so forth. Forget it. That was over. So this is our chance really for us to define the playing field. Okay, we're going to wrap it up. Fill out your Zoom survey. We really like the information it gives us. Thank you for joining, and thank you for sticking around. I think it was a great little briefing, and don't hesitate to share your feedback.
Good night.
Good night, and have a great weekend.